So I wanted to show a couple of, like I said, a couple of accessories, or at least modeling a couple of simple accessories, as well as a different way to use one of the other tools. So one of the things I wanted to show is with this example, with this model, it needs to have some kind of accessory. And a lot of people have said, like, yeah, I'd like to make a hat. Okay, cool, we'll make a hat. I'm also going to show, I inadvertently ended up making an Audrey 2 instead of a Pac-Man, but I wanted to show how you could use one of the tools called patterning tools to create a single iteration of something and then make multiple iterations down the line. And like I said, I just ended up accidentally making an Audrey 2 there, so whatever. Anyhow, straight up example is little adorable cowboy hat. Now, with this one that I modeled, you can, of course, import canvases, images. And with that, let me simplify this a little bit. Don't need duck sides, and I will hide the ducks themselves. But I did find stock images of like a cowboy hat from both the front and the side, and that definitely does help. It was a bit tricky to align them, and what I mean by that is you try to scale them to the same size, or at least the same relative size, so they look the same. And then you have to calibrate that. Remember, to calibrate is simply select the image or mouse over on the project tree on the left, right click, go to calibrate, and you pick whatever 2 points, in this case, the top and bottom, and it's going to show me, all right, that is 44 millimeters. Now, if the image came in is like 2 millimeters, make it bigger. And how I did this one is I simply just scaled one image to about what looks right in comparison to like the duck. I took a calibration and wrote that measurement down. Then when I went to the other side, I simply did the same calibration for this for the other view and made it the same size. That's all. That's the easiest way to make them the same size, and then you just use the move tool to put them in alignment. But how do you go about making something like this, like a complex form like this? Well, like anything we've tried to explain, is you try to simplify it. What does something look like to you? Try not to get too involved with like, okay, or get too caught up in the, I don't know how I can make like the little folds and all the flip out and all that stuff. Don't worry about that. What is a simple hat? Simplify it more to like a top hat, which is, in a top hat, it is simply some sort of a cylinder and then some sort of a brim around that. Using the form tools, we could easily manipulate a form like that. And then taking it a step further, we can easily manipulate that into something much more complex, like a cowboy hat. Now, I will warn you, there are some things that you can get tripped up very easily, and those are the things that we will also try to address tonight, as far as using like the repair tools to fix those. So let's simplify it for now and just start with a simple shape. I'm going to start a new project just so you can see what I'm talking about. Yes, 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 hybrid design, default, blah, blah, blah. All right. Now, again, if you want to use a reference image, you can. In this case, I'm not going to bother because it doesn't have to look exactly like a picture. You know what you're making. I'm going to start by go into the create form workspace. And like I said, I'm going to start with something simple, making a hat that would be like a stovepipe hat or a top hat. What would that be? A cylinder. So I'm going to use a cylinder tool. Start by selecting the cylinder tool, or if you don't see it, go down to create cylinder, same thing. Select a plane. We're working straight up and down, so the XY plane. And remember, if you can, keep it right in the center, at least for now. You can always move it into position later. I'm keeping it smack in the center of the origin plane. And I should have measured, like, how big is my duck head? In this case, we're just going to kind of go with it. Yeah, sure, I'll make it like 30 millimeters. That's fine, whatever. I'm going to make it a bit taller. Let me move this. How tall do I want that? I don't know. Let's make it a tall hat for now. 30 millimeters high, too. That's excessive, but whatever. But remember, we want to try to simplify this in that I don't want to add too many faces first. So as I zoom in or any of that, let's just change like height faces. Let's dial that down. 2 is a bit too simple, so let's keep it at like 3. That's reasonable. Now, I want to show you with cylinders and more rounded things, you don't want to dial down the number of faces too far, because look what happens when I start dialing it down. you start losing resolution until you start to end up with a triangle. So keep it slightly more complicated, but not too far. I would recommend keeping it still in at least an even number of faces. So whole numbers, 6, something like that. But the problem is, even when at 6, when I orbit in front, if I'm going to try to keep this symmetrical, there's no line right in the middle. So 8 faces, which it comes out as default, is 8 faces. It allows me to have a line right down the center. So when I turn on symmetry, and we'll use mirror symmetry, which is symmetrical, not the length, width. So I have a left and right. That's why I would leave that more complicated. That way you have a symmetry line running right down the center. It helps out immensely. Hit OK. All right. That's going to be the start of our pipe hat, cylinder hat, really. Now, remember that a form cylinder only creates the sides. It does not create a top and bottom. We'll get to that. What we can do to start manipulating this? Well, first, what have I not done? Save. Save your project. So I'm using the 00. You put your name, and then just top hat example. I think I just wrote top hot. Anyway. So with this, we need to make a brim. Could you make like a cylinder, or could you make like a flat surface or anything like that? Yes. But I would rather program work for me. Let's be a little lazy. I'm just going to go straight to edit form. Edit form, which is the top one under modify, edit form. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select by vertices, by vertex. I'm going to switch like a front or side view, doesn't matter. And I'm going to draw a selection box from the left to the right. So I'm selecting all of the vertices on the very bottom. From there, I'm going to use the scale tool, which is just the little corner ones are your single or 1 and 2 dimensional scale, but grabbing right in the center, the little 3 arrows pop up, 3D scale. Shrink, yes, but if I stretch it out, that starts instantly becoming, all right, that's more of like
That's like a shower head.
Shower head also. I can start stretching that out, which actually is going to get me pretty close. So let's get it to something reasonable-ish. I don't know, whatever that seems about right. Now that still seems pretty goofy. I would probably want to also drag that upward. But you see, it's already giving me all of these like problematic, I have all these curves and everything. That's okay. But hit OK, because the next step I need to put a crease along right here. So I go to modify, crease, and I'm just going to select this rung. Now we're getting a lot more like a top hat. And all that did is instead of it being a curve, it just made it an actual bend. Might even work well to do it again at the edge, but there we go. Let's try it. Let's repeat that. At the very edge, it's not going to let me crease the corners. But now I can really start to play with these outside edges. Again, if I'm going to select all of them, select from the left all the way to the right. Yeah, and now I can just drag this up and down, whatever. Be careful going up and down. Obviously, you're going to start to create something that's self-intersecting, but right there, all right, it's more of like a UFO, but you can keep going with this too. Stretch this out, whatever. If I want to continue to scale this out, that can work. However, I can also, if I want to extend this, like if I'm just making like a simple top hat, yeah, that would be the most of it. But if I wanted to extend this further, remember, we can extrude not just faces, but edges. So I'm going to select by edge. I'm going to double click that whole bottom rung. You press and hold Alt and drag outward. Ooh, that didn't do what I wanted at all. Let's try scaling out. And you see how it started a new line? I'm scaling, but I'm also extruding. So I'm pressing and holding Alt on the keyboard with that outer edge selected, and it's letting me create another extrusion. And I'm just going outward and outward. So now, while I've got like a top hat sombrero thing going, which is admittedly is pretty cool, or I can make it like a giant sun hat, whichever you want to go with, I can now start to stretch this upward, and you can obviously see where I can start to get like a cowboy hat kind of thing. Yeah, I think I'm making like a giant sun hat. Whatever, you make your own. Okay, so we have like the basics of a rather exaggerated hat. Let's do something with the top now. Save first and save brim. Large brim. So I do need to close this up because eventually I'm just gonna use the thicken tool to add dimension to this. But I want to close at the top. So modify, excuse me, fill hole. Not that one. I want to double click on the top and that starts to collapse it. So a couple of things. One, we've used the fill hole tool before, but you want to cycle through the options. Reduce star, I have found, doesn't often get what I want. Fill star, well, that actually gives a pretty good version, but sometimes it doesn't work. Collapse gives a pretty uniform version. When you use collapse, I highly recommend you check the box that says weld vertices. That just kind of fuses things together in the center just to make sure. You also have the option to add a crease right there. So right now, it stays curvy. If I check this checkbox says keep creases, now I have an enclosed top hat. That is entirely up to you. I'm probably going to not check that because I'm going to alter that a bit. I'm going to hit OK. So I'll save and add top closed. Now this, like I said, is very quickly quite an exaggerated hat, but it is a hat. So I could very easily just go to thicken, and like we did before, add a little dimension to it. Well, let's say 2 millimeters. Hit OK. And now it changes from a surface to a thickened object. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to keep it like that. So let me Control Z. I'm going to make a copy of this one so I can do two of these. And yep. So now I have two, and I'm just going to relabel one as more of like simple hat and the other sun hat. I'm actually kind of liking the sun hat idea, right? So the sun hat or simple hat, we can certainly just go back to the thicken. I do what I just did. 2 millimeters thick. All right, there you go. I mean, it's a thickened hat. You're good. You can play with that as you like. I'm going to take this further since I made a copy paste. So I have a copy of just the simple thickness one. I want to augment this now. So, couple things. I want to start playing with the idea of giving it like more of a cowboy hat style. So I'm going to start at the top. The top has that little indentation up there. So with that, this is just now, I got to play around with some features. So things like, I'm going to go to the edit form. Well, by vertex, I grab just the center one and drag it downward. You can very quickly see where I'm going to start to create that indentation. What if I'm going to hold and select and grab just the three side vertices and drag those up. Now we're starting to get something more like that. Drag those three toward the center. Of course, it also kind of looks like a molar, but whatever. And I can very quickly start to create more of the actual indent there. Establish one as the front, one as the back. We'll make the back vertex a little bit higher. All right. I do need to add some complexity to this in order to continue this. So if I want to add a line in here, I'll hit OK, and I'll go to Insert Edge. Double click all the way around. Ooh, you can see where that's going to go. I don't want two lines, so let's just go back to single. On the outside, yep, sure that works. You see where that additional green line is around the top of the hat? Cool. Hit OK. Adds a little complexity, but now I have something to bend against. Meaning, like if I want those indentations that a lot of cowboy hats have. Where's the other one that I have? There we are. That has more of these sort of style indentations. All right. Well, how I would have done that is I would have selected over here and drug these inwards a little bit. So again, back to edit form. If you want to do this by vertex or by edge, doesn't matter. Again, a lot of this is going to be absolutely up to you in personal preference. So I drag those inward, not too far. But now I can start to style it that way. Maybe do the same with the edges at the top here. Drag those inward. Getting close. Let me try rotating it. Now we're getting even more so. A lot of this stuff is absolutely just playing around. Whatever seems to work right. Maybe some of these need to be moved forward and back. Like selecting here. Actually, I should probably drag by vertex. Let's try that instead. That one and that one. Let's drag that forward a little bit. Oh, actually, grab the scale. Drag it forward a little bit. Maybe rotate it. Same for the back. Drag backwards. Rotate a little. Maybe also grab the top one. Drag it some more. So much of this is absolutely just tweaking, press, pull, a little bit here, a little bit there, until you get to about what you want. All right, that's actually fairly decent for the top. All right, but I want that curve. I want the curvy. So how do we do that? Got to curve them. So again, I go back. Now that I've worked with the front or the center a bit, let's use the Form Edit tool to adjust the brim. Granted, this is a rather exaggerated cowboy hat, and we're definitely somewhere between more of like sun hat and sombrero. So maybe we'll have maybe it a sombrero. I don't know. That's going to be up to you. You make whatever the heck you want. So what I need to do is I need to drag the edges upward, but I also want to curve them inward. Selecting by vertex is an excellent way to move things up and down individually, but selecting by edges, you have a better option of actually curving things. So I'm going to switch to by edge. I'm going to select just these two. So if I'm looking at it from above, I'm not selecting the what is going to be the front and back. It's just the very edges. Let's try rotating that. Well, we've got instantly pretty well what we wanted. Drag that upward a bit, maybe a bit more. But look at it from the side. If I tilt it forward now, getting a bit more. So again, this is just working back and forth, front, back, all of that sort. I'm actually pretty okay with that. Now I'm going to select my vertex because I want to drag the front or the back and front downward a little bit. Again, I'm just playing. That's not too terrible. So just a little curvature. The easiest way to select to curve, again, was by edges. The way to control individual things is by selecting by vertex. That works the best. Let's say okay. And the last bit on this would be add a thickness to it. Select there. Yeah, 2 millimeters ought to do. Kind of rounded it out a little bit, but that's all right. Remember, you can go back and still keep playing with this. But let's hit finish form and see how badly we messed up. What did I forget to do? Forgot to save before I hit that. That's because I have two hats right now. All right, so that actually turned out pretty well. I'm going to save that. Save. My sombrero. That's not at all how I even spell that. Whatever. From here, you can easily add accessories. So we've been playing with the idea of like using the pipe tool. Select the pipe, and you can use any of these edges as your path. So I'm going to select the edge of that sombrero there, the front there, whatever. Let me drag that to make it bigger. You could make it like a big old blob section there, which could easily become like, I don't know, like points around. I don't know, maybe you end up making some crocodile teeth and you make your little duck a tiny crocodile hunter. You know, whichever one you want. You want the Paul Hogan version or the Steve Irwin version. Both are good. Yeah, using the pipe tool really gets you far with this. The other thing could be, all right, let me change the other one. I got more of like this style hat. Say I wanted to actually make like a band around this or something. Be pretty easy to do like we did before and create like a line there. So maybe let me go back in, edit feature. Let me hide that one. I want to add like a line in between there or something. And I'll use oops, not that one. I could use the insert edge to break it up, and when I finish form, that didn't translate, so I'll have to do it the other way. Say I wanted to create, like instead, I want to be able to make like a band around this. Well, I could easily probably make like just a cylinder smack in the middle, but that's going to do some weird things if I try to drag that upwards, and I'm going to have to deal with, well, that's cutting, but I'd have to like find a way to create it that way, which wouldn't be bad.
Could do a construction plane.
Hmm. Yeah, you can do a construction plane to bring that up, anything like that. But what I wanted to show y'all is we can still use, like we did for the very unnerving duck before, to use the emboss tool to offset faces. But to do that, if I wanted to use like the offset face tool, I'd have to select like an individual face, and that is, well, it's actually doing it on all the things, so that's confusing. That's not what I want. Oops. And in order to use the emboss tool, I need to have a sketch going. So why don't we do that? So we'll do like a construction plane. I'll pick to the side and I'm just dragging a plane outward. Doesn't matter. And I can drag outward like that. Create a sketch. I want to project. So press P on the keyboard or create, project. So I'm just going right back to what we've been doing before. I'm just doing that to make an outline of the hat. That's all. It just makes it easier to do. And I could draw just a straight line across. I could draw a fit point spline and make it a squiggly line. Whatever. Either one works. So that's off to the side. And what I'm going to do is I actually want to project that onto the face. Because if I want to use a pipe tool or anything else like that, I need to actually apply it to the face. So we have done things like split body, so that would chop it in half. But what I want to do is simplify all of that. I'm going to go to split face. And what this is going to do, this allows me to just select all of these. And my splitting tool can be a straight line across or a squiggly line across. And oops, I don't want to extend the plane there. There we go. Keep it to just right there. And what that's going to do when I hit OK, now I have a squiggly line applied, mirrored, of course, from side to side, but it's all the way around my hat. Now I could go and do like I did before, a pipe tool. This isn't going to let me select all the way around because it has all those faces. Okay, if I use the pipe tool, it's going to make me go all the way around individually. But you can see what I'm doing here by selecting. I've got this individual path now. The other thing would be, maybe instead, let's try to select. Will it let me select both of them? Nope. So let me reapply that split face on all of those. Oops, I got to do it from the side. My splitting tool, again, is that sketch I just made. And let's just use the straight one now. So now I should have these sections. Now, hopefully, now I can actually use what is essentially the emboss tool, but the face here. And I'm trying to just let it select just those individual ones. And if this doesn't work, we just have to emboss it. Yeah. So this is essentially doing the exact same thing as emboss. I'm just doing it all the way around because emboss is a offset face. They are this essentially the same tool. They just do slightly different things. So all I did was instead of use the emboss tool to create the sketch down onto the surface on the faces, I just used the split face tool to do it. And because these lines went all the way through, I was able to apply that all the way through. So it's a cool way you can just add additional like features simply like by like adding like a band around, or again, let me change that up. Or you could use the pipe tool and add like these little features down at the bottom there. You could do that all the way around as well if you have an edge to work with. This hat, there's no edge to work with. This hat, same. The edge is very curvy. If I had used a sharp thicken, I would have created an edge. But in this, because I used a soft edge, I did not. So those are just a couple of ways to make either a simple hat and a simple hat slightly more complex, or take that same simple hat, start adding complexity to it, and you can get quite a lot of augmentation to it. So, pipe tool, tools, and split faces. Always unnerving. Okay, let's pause there.